You can support the Dungeon Masters Dojo in some very simple ways. Be patronizing, like Lou, and become a patron on Patreon and unlock exclusive patron content.
Or if you're like Scott and long-term commitment is an issue, you can buy a Sasaki, shop our merch page for DMD swag, or use our Drive-Thru RPG affiliate link next time you shop Drive-Thru RPG.
Or visit us on the web at thedungeonmastersdojo.com. There, you'll find links to all the above. Don't forget to email us and say hello.
Thanks for listening.
Role-playing, a noun. The acting out of the part of a particular person or character, for example, as a technique in training or psychotherapy. Specific guidelines need to be followed for role-playing to be effective. Or participation in a role-playing game.
It's 5 ways to get your players to role-play this week on the Dungeon Masters Dojo.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robitaille. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today.
Gentlemen?
You will refer to me as Kalevala, son of the Bayarak.
What?
Observe my pectoral muscles. Feed them. They grow hungry.
What?
I'm playing the role, man.
What role? How do you... What?
My character. D&D is a role-playing game, right? During play, you should be playing the role of the character you have designed.
I am.
I have designed.
I'm walking over here and I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to put it down.
No. That's not how it works.
He just doesn't get
He
it.
doesn't get it.
This is why he runs the board.
Right. But how can you, as a DM, encourage your players to play that role and portray their character that they have designed? Because, right, we know that a player spends a lot of time putting their character together.
Well, a seasoned player.
A seasoned player does. And
But we're probably talking about the people who haven't really played a lot, or someone who basically plays themselves and just gives a different name.
right. Or maybe it's a player that has played a great deal but has never had that role-playing part of the game fostered in them.
True. There could be a very technical game that they're used to.
Yeah.
Or they've come from one of those strategic games like Warhammer, stuff like that, where there isn't really
Risk.
a lot of role playing.
Or maybe they're
Monopoly.
shy.
Could be they're
Maybe they're shy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a DM, really, your job is immersion, right? I mean, the game is always better when there's like immersion, deep immersion.
Then immerse
Absolutely.
me, foolish one.
Immerse me.
I thought you never asked, how many times have I thought of holding your head under the water, Lou? How many times?
No. The baptismal pool of role playing. That's what we're going to call it.
Yeah, the baptismal pool of
He's going to call it
role-playing.
the toilet, but we're going to call it the baptismal pool of role playing.
For the role-playing swirly.
When you emerge, you will be a different person entirely. Arise, Sir Lewitus.
I'll fling back my hair, which you can't do.
I can if I'm role-playing a character that has hair, right?
That's it.
Only time.
I can be, and you can too, out there, listeners. You can be whoever and whatever you want to be. But to coin a phrase that I've heard from our good friends over at D20 The Curtain, play the role.
Play the role.
That's it.
Play the role. So we're going to talk to you about a few ways that you as a DM can foster role-playing at your table. 5 ways. For
5
now,
ways.
to
Quick
get
and
you
easy.
warmed up.
Are we ready?
I
think
so.
we're ready.
Okay. Number 1, have reasonable role play expectations. Not everyone is a Critical Role cast member.
True. Right? For a table full of, accountants and, firefighters and mechanics and stuff like that, they're not going to be as fine-tuned as a Hollywood actor.
Correct.
Right? So have reasonable expectations, right? Don't expect that from them. Expect them to be involved in playing this character that is different from them in probably many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Expect that there will be some similarities, right? Especially if someone is new to playing the game and role-playing games. Expect that there will probably be more similarities to themselves, their real-world selves, than if maybe they were a veteran player. But even as a veteran player, some of you bleeds into portrayal of a character.
Oh, I practically hemorrhage.
Yeah, it's a gush. it's a messy, really messy.
But when you've been around as long as I have
never met a fun and happy DM Bill character. They're all cranky and impatient. You're thinking, Lou, right? Think of one. Even back in the AD&D 2nd edition type days, never once did he play a jester. Yep.
I can't.
Dog was reasonable.
He was
never grumpy.
He barked and occasionally would growl.
Only at the enemies. He was very happy and friendly to all the players.
And then there was your suburban ranger.
Yes.
What was his name?
Tobias.
Yes.
Yeah, Tobias was he was always happy-go-lucky, always follow me. I know a great route, and he was upbeat.
Nobody was happy with him, but
he was upbeat all the time.
Yep.
He was the urban ranger. We'll talk about stuff like that later on in the year.
So there you go. There's 2 out of 75,000
50 years of playing. There's been 2 and countless binders of characters. 2 dose de.
It might be 1 or 2 more.
Yeah. So have those reasonable role play expectations. Don't be too hard on your table. Don't have those expectations that everything is going to flow like a very well-educated.
I don't think a DM should have any expectations except just to have fun.
Have fun, but
well,
role play.
Yeah, encourage it, but I mean, don't expect.
Well, I think you're right. There's a certain amount of
Yes,
you're absolutely. I think that you shouldn't go in there with expectations. You can go in there with hopes.
Yes.
With hopes and
nurturement
and the ability to nurture and maybe I wouldn't even say coach. If they come to you, well, how was that? That was really good. But then you can give small pointers. Try not to make sweeping changes because they're not going to be able to do it.
How many times have I done that? Whether either I'm playing or GM, and how many times have I, Bill? How did I do?
Yeah, true. Yeah, actually, almost every time.
Yeah.
We have a lot of conversations like that, especially with your game master, because you're still not comfortable with game mastering.
Right.
So you and I bounce stuff off each other all the time. So what happens if they do a decent job?
Right, reward them.
Yeah.
How?
There's a lot of different ways. Inspiration is a good one.
That's probably one of the best ones.
Probably one of the best.
Yeah, it's
experience
immediate
points.
gratification right there. Experience points is another one.
Experience, extra percentage of the experience points awarded to the character based on good role playing. Something as simple as, dude, you crushed it tonight. I mean, your character really came to life. You did such a good job, because I think you need to kind of find your flow with the character when you're brand new, because your concept on paper is maybe different than how it is portrayed at the table. Once you learn the other characters at the table and your interactions with them, it deviates a little bit. It's like the pilot episode of a TV series. A lot of times the character has some pretty big changes in presentation throughout, like the first season or the second season.
Right.
which is normal. And that's just not character growth, but just ironing out.
Well, I think you nailed it on the head. Positive comments. Well, okay, I'm being less shy as I come forward now. Because I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, positive comments.
Yep. I think one of the ways I reward them is if they do slip in, into that, you can see it developing. And with an NPC, I'd give them that moment in their, a moment to shine, and try to keep drawing it through a little bit more prolonged. Maybe it was only supposed to be a chance encounter, but for whatever reason, something sparked there. I would draw that encounter out for a good 5-10 minutes, and let them kind of run with it and try to draw it out of there. And if the more animated you are, the more animated they're going to be. So I think a lot of it is by example. You give them the give and take, but if you see that spark there, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, at this moment, they're really doing a great job. Try to draw that out, so then they have that memorable moment to come back to and say, "Wow, that was really good when I did that." So, similar to inspiration, it's immediate gratification right then and there. So everyone's like, "Yeah, man, that wow!" Right there at the table, your other players are probably going to notice it as well. Hopefully.
Oh well, we have. I won't mention his name, but we had a lone wolf character. And then Marcus,
we've mentioned his name before.
Well, then Andrew, he was kind of our lone wolf. And then during Marcus's game, he just bloomed. I was like, oh my fucking God! Everybody was. I think everybody's jaw dropped when he just started orating his character. And I was like, holy shit! Who are you?
Well, you could. No, I taught Andrew how to play. Way back when he was like knee high to a shit pile, and he was always been very, very, very shy, very shy, very shy. But the more comfortable he came with our group, he started coming out of his shell a bit. And it always goes the same route. First, they become combative and argument in character and stuff like that. And colorful metaphors and swears are being thrown left and right and things like that, because they're getting a little bit more familiar with the player as well as the character. But then they realize, okay, I don't have to go that route, and then they start getting into their character, because now, as a person, they have developed, and now they're developing their character. And then when that switch gets thrown, it's dramatic and it happens quick. And that's what you're talking about. Is Andrew became comfortable with Andrew, as a player.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden that transferred to his characters, and it was an almost overnight change. And now I love the way he plays.
I do too.
Yeah.
And those encouraging words, that positive reinforcement is one of those things that'll bring people out of their shell and encourage more role playing. It's like, oh, I guess I am.
And when it's coming
pretty
from the
good
whole
at this.
table.
Validation.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. And
Validation for your
is
efforts.
very, very important. And that's probably one of the biggest rewards you could give to someone, is that positive affirmation. You did a good job. And that encourages other people to role play. And when you role play from, you got a role playing moment between two players role playing their characters, that's magic.
That's right. Yeah.
That's really, really
magic, comedy, everything.
Everything above. And I could think of hundreds of examples of that sort of thing. Anytime your character and Korik's character interact, it's gold. It's just gold. And it's fantastic stuff to see at a gaming table. You just sit back. And
the one thing I will say about that, though, is when you're having these, whether it's a good interaction or a bad interaction, because like me and Korik were always arguing. Just got to remember, that's the characters. That's not you and the person next to you.
Right.
So, because that will turn a lot of people, well, I don't want them to be mad at me. Well, it's a game. You're not playing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing your character.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like how often do you suppose in an action movie that two actors who just got done with a fist fight go back and continue it, while they're at the craft services table, right? They're probably just shooting the breeze and,
That's my glazed donut, you bastard.
If that's the one thing I would say, that would be, just remember it.
And that's really important. Yeah, that's really, really important.
Because me and Korik would sit down and have a drink together and shoot the breeze for a little while after come back to the table, and then we were back at
each other's throats.
The Gravin and Iskander show.
Yep.
Well, I think a lot of that too, some of that, the agency on that falls to the more seasoned player.
True.
I think, because they should turn around after the encounter, because some people sometimes get so wrapped up in that encounter that they themselves like, man, that guy's a dick. And, so you get done with it and you look for a pause and go, dude, that was an awesome play. Man, I love the way you played that character. I said, these guys are going to have fun back, going back. You need to define that separation.
Yes.
Yep.
Not saying, oh, hey, that wasn't me, that was my character. No, once again, go back to the positive reinforcement and say, dude, that was a great exchange. Oh, these two characters are going to have fun bouncing off of one another. I can't wait to do it again. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's the characters, and it kind of takes them out of the heated moment personally. But then when you get back into it, you can draw them back into that same dynamic as characters. Mm-hmm. But I think the seasoned player needs to make that definition with a new player or an unfamiliar player, someone new to the table that's different used to a different dynamic at a table. And that way they know, okay, all right, there is separation here. He's not a dick, just his character is. Yeah,
solid point on that one too. That is really, really important, because you don't want hard feelings at the table. A little conflict at the table between characters is always really good.
Absolutely, but
Never
you don't want to be players.
Yeah.
But if you don't make that definition, and week after week that those two characters keep going at it, an unseasoned player or an unfamiliar player might think that that's that person playing, doing that, and not the character. So as the game master or the seasoned player, those little interjections here and there, saying, well, I love the way you guys, your characters bounce off of one another and stuff like that. Or as the season player, you turn around after the game, hey, dude, I love the way you're playing your character. I love playing my guy off of yours and yours off of mine. That's awesome. I can't wait till we get back into it again. That kind of stuff. It's like, oh, yeah. In their head, it's like, okay, that separation, there's a separating point there. So they know in character there's that conflict, but not with the players. But it could bleed over.
Right, but going a little bit further to help we'll say the newer player, if it's two seasons players going after that, they should explain or somebody should explain to the newer player.
Oh, yeah.
So he can see that as well. It's like, that's just in game.
Yep.
They're having fun.
Yep. Yeah, if someone watched the two of you play side by side, which is fun to watch because you two argue just as much in your characters as you do in real life. It's like, oh, great, the married couple is carrying on over. But for someone stepping in, you're right. They're like, okay, they're outside picking on each other. Now they're inside. Like, do these guys really hate each other? No. They've known each other literally for decades. This is just the way they get along.
That's our love language.
All right. So I think to help this along, all right, make your campaign, make sure you have plenty of PC side points, and pull these out of the backgrounds like side plots. And that's where the backgrounds come in handy. So you have multiple points to draw them in and give them opportunities to role play.
And that's a reward in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those side plots, right? What's going on? How does your character's backstory, how does your character concept, where does that fall in the overarching campaign? And you can very easily weave that into the big campaign, and you can have a lot as a DM. You can have a lot of fun with that.
Well, yeah, because you can weave in both the positives and the negatives.
Yeah, and that adds another layer to the immersion that really you should be trying to achieve.
Well, it doesn't make the characters two-dimensional.
Right.
We're not always just moving forward to the next thing.
It's not a sheet of paper.
Exactly.
It's a living, breathing, three-dimensional. It's a person. It just happens to be, documented on a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's just the representation of the person you have become.
Right.
Or trying to become. So yeah, having those side plots there is huge. And it helps the game master plan the scenarios.
Yeah.
The encounters, how you maybe you have an issue with a caravan because maybe your family, was, this guy, every time the caravan showed up, all they had was the leavings because you were the last stop. You're always the last stop. There was always crap. So you go to these caravans going, man, these guys suck. They never have anything good. Yeah. So you always have this disposition and this negative point of view against caravans, everything about it. So then you run into one. It's like, well, they got all this stuff. Well, this is the stuff they normally have. Well, now you're even more pissed off at the one that you see on a regular basis, and knowing that there's others out there. Maybe you ran into the same caravan and caught it in the beginning, because you're out adventuring, and that becomes a plot, both good and negative.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with that. So much you could do with that. Family members, family discord.
For those you don't kill off your families, because not everyone's an orphan. God damn it.
Yeah, and go back to our player backstory episode with Matt Fillion.
Yeah.
No, the orphan thing.
I hate that shit.
Stop it. Just stop. Have a family. And DMs, don't be one of those DMs where it's like, okay, they have a family, I'm going to wipe them out. Don't do that either. And don't kill their dogs. What's wrong with you people? Let them have a family if they want to do that. Don't be that guy.
Eventually they want to retire and go back home and embrace mom and dad and sisters and brothers and stuff like that. Yeah, and don't turn them into, all right, a raiding party of X comes tearing through and burns the village and kills everyone.
Yeah.
Because now you made them an orphan instead of them making themselves an orphan. It's the same difference.
Yeah, it's not a Greek tragedy.
No.
Yeah.
Or an anime where all the heroes die at the end.
Yeah, I mean, that part's pretty cool, though.
Well, yeah.
A good,
yeah, but they kill them off in the beginning, too.
Yeah. Side plots.
Very
important. That is going to encourage a lot of role play if, you do it right.
Well, hopefully they made their own backstory. You didn't have to make it for them. So they already have a certain investment into the character by, all right, this is how I envisioned it and how they got to this point.
That gives you a little bit of agency to play with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you can develop it, and then their backstory starts to develop as, maybe this and maybe that. Can I rewrite my backstory? Sure. Add to it.
And the other thing is, when you're creating these backstories, keep them simple, because if you're starting at level 1 or 3, you really don't have that much of a backstory.
You don't have 14 volumes, Tom. You don't have 14 volumes of backstory.
Yeah, no DM should expect that you're writing some Game of Thrones shit.
Yeah, your backstory should not show up in a 3-ring binder.
It could be as simple as a few bullet points, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. Don't get too fancy. There's not a DM on the planet that's going to want to read your 10-page dissertation on everything that happened, from the time your character was born up until their 20th birthday. Nobody's got time for that. And if you do have time for that, you need to fill your time a little bit better.
But to go along with your backstory, use defining traits.
Yeah. Tell your players, tell them, listen, what I want you to do is I want you to create 5 character defining traits and then insist that they use them. When we played the Donnelly Files stuff, Lou's character had he had a thing for 3, the number 3.
Yeah.
And he had some OCD stuff going on. Everything was in 3s.
Or divisible by 3, and the color blue was a thing. Yep. So every bit of machinery he had or created, it glowed blue. Or sparked blue, or when it blew up, there was blue flames and blue smoke.
And everything from starting his makeshift vehicle had to be cranked 3 times in a certain direction. Yep. It was...
And again, paper towels had to get 3 paper towels.
Yeah. And that stuff, that kind of non-dialogue role play adds another layer to your characters. Where so there's some quirks about them, there's some things about them in certain circumstances that they're going to do, but you gotta stick with them. So when the shit's hitting the fan, and Tesla, Lou's character, is fleeing from an angry mob of fungal zombies in the Belgian Congo in 1890, he is still attached to that number 3.
Yes.
Touching the door to safety 3 times and that sort of thing.
Well, he had to wind up. He wind up his pistol, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Because he had to do it three times. Three times. It was like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, things right in your face.
Yep.
But you have to wind it up.
And I still did it that way too.
Yep.
So you don't drop it when you know, oh shit, I could be in trouble if I'm winding this stuff up 3 times and then another 3 times and then another 3 times. No, stick with it.
Yep.
Because that's your character. Once you deviate from that sort of thing, your role play and your immersion is shot.
Right. So yeah, embrace your defining traits, stick with them, and be creative.
Yeah.
But don't be debilitative. Like that wasn't debilitative. It was. Right. It added tension, which is awesome. Yep. Added drama, which is awesome.
And comedy in a lot of
comedy in a lot of places. Yeah. But it usually wasn't debilitating. Usually. Pretty much everything Lou does is debilitating to everyone within a 15-foot radius.
Both in real life and at the gaming table.
And as a DM, you should be role-playing your NPCs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to encourage role-playing. That's going to encourage role-playing between a player and the NPC, or players and the NPC or NPCs.
Right.
So that's like kind of walk the walk, practice what you preach and all that stuff like that. If you want your players to role play, then you have to demonstrate that as well. And that could be any number of these things. Like if you're going to have, and players are infamous for this, you have someone that runs the general store, and they're in there and they're buying stuff for that every adventurer needs, some walnuts or something like that, and walnuts like the nut, not wall nuts that you put in the wall to affix something to it, but you get the idea. Maybe iron rations.
Why would someone think that?
Who knows?
I don't know.
But still, for the purpose of clarity,
thank you for the clarification. In case someone thought,
I don't want someone out there to be like, should I have walnuts in my adventuring pack? Maybe a walnut is something I, screw into a wall if my rogue needs to climb up the wall to.
It's the summer ale that's doing it.
It's got to be. I guess he started going off in that. I was like, what the hell is he?
Maybe we should create a magic item: walnuts.
Walnuts.
So I don't even remember where I was. Yeah, role play those NPCs, and if your character, the barest of NPCs, the shopkeeper, if your players decide that he is now going to be their buddy, or she's now going to be their buddy, as they often do whenever you don't flesh out an NPC.
Yeah.
Make it a point to take the time and do 5 character defining traits for that NPC, so that they know, and you can place that note in your DM's notes, and now
or even 2 or 3.
Or even 2 or 3, but 5's such a better number. This is 5 ways to, right?
Well, for players, NPCs, you don't want to make player characters out of your NPCs.
At some point in time, you have to.
Well, if they become one of those reoccurring NPCs, at our table, half the time they end up going with the party, and someone ends up taking them over, and they become a player character.
Sir Higerdine,
yes,
God's rest his soul.
He's gonna start crying now.
Yes, he is.
That was one of my favorite characters. I've had quite a few favorite characters at tables. I'm fortunate.
And they all died around you. What does that say about you?
That says at some point in time my dice roll lucky. It takes a while, but they do. Even my fudge dice hate me.
Oh, the fudge dice were horrible.
God, they were awful. Yeah, role play those NPCs. Bring life to them. If you don't, your world's awfully vanilla.
Well, this is your opportunity to break out your voices and dialogues and squeaky things, and you can right down to if he's constantly wringing his hands as the game master, wringing your hands as he's well, that's going to cost 5 gold pieces. Yeah. The sign says 3. Sorry, that's the wrong sign. Someone moved it. I'll put that back where it belongs. That's 5 gold pieces. And meanwhile you're kind of hunching your shoulders and you're wringing your hands as you're talking. It gives a little bit of visual along with the voice, goes a long ways.
Yeah,
because especially when you're at a table, or even if you're virtual, they can see you. Immersion. Try to become that person as an NPC, even if it is just for the briefest of encounters. It'll help enrichen the game.
I'll even like cross my eyes and stuff like that, or have one go in the opposite direction. But then I always hear my grandmother's voice in the back of my head.
You gotta stay like that.
Stay like that. And then I get worried.
And the only time you can usually do that is right around the 5th or 6th beer.
Yes.
When one eye just kind of drifts off all by itself. He
The
pulls a Marty Feldman.
sacrifices I make for my craft.
He goes all Marty Feldman.
Yep.
Hump? What hump?
And that's 5 ways to get your players to roleplay. We'll see you next time in the dojo.
That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.